Let's go.
Yes, everybody, Russ, the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well. If you're new around here, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a share, give it a subscribe. We are live as West Ham take on Burnley ahead. 3 o'clock kick-off at London Stadium. 17th plays 18th in an interesting game. Obviously, fans and players buoyed by the Newcastle results. And as I said, we play 17th Burnley. We welcome back former West Ham graduates, academy graduate Josh Cullen, as well as former 3-time Hammer of the Year Scott Parker in the dugout. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think, you know, from a team news perspective, there is question marks around the availability of Callum Wilson. He hasn't been featured in any of their sort of training videos the club put out. And there has been rumours about that. But I think, I talk about it a bit more on the Starting 11 show, but in essence, I think there would be maybe justification to just stick Tommy Souček up front, rather than fuck about with everything and put Paqueta as a false 9 or Bowen. And, you know, I think behind the sort of the target man, I think there's definitely that we can have a settled side. What will be interesting to see is if we do have a settled side. We know that over the last few weeks, his MO, he does like a bit of a tinker. But I don't expect to see much apart from maybe who plays up front. People say maybe Callum Marshall, maybe Josh Rijala. Both played 60, 70 minutes respectively yesterday. And I think if there was any chance of them getting into the squad, they wouldn't have played yesterday. The under-21s were brilliant yesterday. 3-1, 3-0 up against Liverpool, 1-3-1. Didn't give them a sniff. Honestly, it was one of the most dominant performances I think I've ever seen the under-21s. It was brilliant. I was really impressed. Nice football, some great goals. I mean, Callum scored a good goal because of his doggedness, in that he scored basically tackling the goalkeeper. And then you've got, a great goal from Josh Rijala and a great goal from Mamadou Kante. It was interesting to see who wasn't playing yesterday. Ezra Mayers was back in the side yesterday. He was on the bench of the Burnley game, but the under-21 captain Erdős Golombekis wasn't. So, and making inquiries yesterday at Rush Green about why Erdős wasn't playing, knowing full well he's probably going to be on the bench, and that was the assumption. There was a lot of nods and winks, so we could see the under-21 captain on the bench. We could even see Finn Herrick on the bench as well, with suggestions that Fabianski isn't 100% fit. Wouldn't be Christian Heggie because he played 90 minutes yesterday for the under-21s with his own personal videographer and photographer. I kid you not. He had his own photographer and videographer literally taking pictures of him the whole game. So bizarre. It was so bizarre. Let's see what we got in the chat. We have got, let's go right. Oh, there we go. Mark, have you on, Mark Watson? Are you confident today? And do you think there'll be any surprise in the starting 11? I think there may be a surprise because I don't know if Callum's going to be fit. So I think that's the only surprise who comes in. Personally, I think, I would like them to not fuck about with it and just put Tommy Souček in. It's not the ideal solution, but it gives you another 6-foot player in there. And then he can do the knockdowns and things like that rather than necessarily, I want Paqueta as a 10, as Nuno would say. So, yeah, and also it's worth mentioning, it is the remembrance game here. And there's been a load of bollocks on social media about West Ham not doing the poppy gate, not doing poppies or anything like that. That's bollocks. I've been doing this. This is my 25th year doing this. And we were walking it through last game in terms of it. I think that's one thing we do really well as a club. I think we do the remembrance game really, really, really well. And really, honour those who made the ultimate sacrifice in service in their country. So we'll have the British Legion, we'll have the Bugalists, we'll have the Last Post, we'll have the brass band, we'll have acting servicemen, and women. We'll have Blesma here as well, and Yesterday under 21s, they had the poppies on the shirts. I did the remembrance bit for the minute silence. So don't read everything you read on social media. Take everything you read with a pinch of salt, because it went absolutely wildfire last night and it was absolute bollocks. But anyway, back to it. That's the only surprise I can think. Agua hope you're well. More concerned about staying in Newcastle. Is it a knock or is it an injury? And what is it? We don't know. We don't know, lads. We don't know. But that's what we're assuming. There might be a knock on it. It might be. It might not be. Again, rumours. It might be. He's fine. Nuno was a bit hesitant in terms of talking about who's not. He was saying there might have been a few knocks and bumps and grazes and things like that, and he didn't really go into much sort of detail. But he wouldn't do, because that would obviously, impact things. And I think personally, I'd be favoured to put Tommy Souček up front. He's a lump. He's probably just as mobile as Callum Wilson, in all honesty. And he's good for a goal. I mean, he's one of the top 50 goal scorers at West Ham of all time. So yeah, he scored a lot more goals than a lot more of our strikers, to be honest. Dan's in the chat. Nice to see you, mate. You beautiful bugger. Hope you're well. Wish you all the best after today. Steve says, morning, Ross. I think the only change we will see is up front. My guess, Souček in, Wilson. That's what I think, Steve. That's what I think. It's not something I'm particularly enamoured about, but I think it's a means to the end. And I think Nicholas is probably about another. Well, he'll be back after. Obviously, this is the last game for the international break. If we do beat Burnley by a couple of clear goals, we could go above them in the table and out the bottom three, which would be huge mentally, both for the fan base and for the players as well. Going into the international break, after the international break, you're probably welcome back. We may have pretty much a full side apart from Ollie Stiles, with Dino and Nicholas likely to be back in time, and obviously you've got the clear run then until March with no international break. You do have the AFCON, but obviously there's no break in the Premier League calendar for that. So I think it's about getting through this game, and I think 1 to 8 and 10 to 11 in terms of positions, I think be pretty well. I'll be surprised. There may well be. Has been talk, and again I say talk because it could be bollocks. That Aaron might have a slight knock and Kyle Walker-Peters comes in. I'm not so bothered about that one, but it's a striker issue thing. So as I said, if it means that Thomas comes in, he'll do a good job. He'll play well. He's got the fitness, and if he's not got to run about so much as well, and it's another header opportunity, another 6 foot plus person in either end of the box, and so needs must, doesn't it? Sometimes that's why you got a squad. My arse is getting twitchy. We get closer there than Dad. What we got? Yes. Sorry, I'm doing it on my phone, so it's not great. Full crew starts. Callum comes in later. Morning, Russ. I don't think Full Krug will be fit. He might be again. It might be something that they've deliberately not been. But what we're led to believe is he's unlikely to be fit until after the international break. But again, we'll see. And that's what I quite like about Nuno. I mean, there's obvious ones. Obviously, I saw Ollie yesterday. He was at the under 21 game, and had a chat with him, and he still had his arm in a sling from his shoulder surgery, the collarbone surgery, and he'll be back for about December time, he reckons. So hopefully that the issue's there. And then you've got, and then actually Lewis Orphan was there as well. It's nice to see Lou there as well. That being the only real definite injury. Again, Dino, we haven't seen him around, but things can be edited, can't they, in terms of training videos to show and not show certain players in certain lights. In Flanders Fields, indeed, Poppy's blow, you know it. Mark, are we overhyping Heady? Are we overhyping Freddie? Just like we do with Ollie. I don't necessarily think we hyped Ollie as much as Freddie. I think Freddie is, he's got all the constituent parts to be a real West Ham great. You've got his dad's, the Potts dynasty. In fact, Steve and Mark Robson were both watching the under 21 game last night. It was great to see that continuity perspective. I think Freddie's midfield is a very different position than left back. Now, with Ollie, I always thought it bizarre that we put Ollie in left back because, to be honest, for the previous 18 months with the under 21s, he'd been playing centre midfield alongside Lewis. But regardless of that, I think we hyped Ollie up. I don't think we hyped him up as much as Freddie. Freddie went away. He had 2 really good loan spells. We had reports coming back from Portsmouth fans, last season that and Wickham fans the previous season. He won, player of the year type thing. So he came with a pedigree. I think Ollie just came in and didn't have that sort of back catalogue. I mean, Freddie's played over 100 games professionally already, realistically, in terms of his time in the lower leagues. So I think he comes in at a different level than Ollie, personally. What's Dan said? So I'm trying to go through it. Dan has said, keep an eye on the Leeds Forest game today. Mate, there's loads of games which topsy-turvy. I fancy Leeds, though, against Forest, to be honest. I just do. But you never know. The Dyche era, as you well know, my friend, as you all know, might have Josh Landers to come off the bench, the winner. Josh came on last night, 20 minutes for Callum. Out of all of our striker options in the academy, for me, Josh Landers is the most suited to coming in and playing for Nuno. I think Callum's more of a, as I said, I've always seen him as a second striker. Yes, he plays up front, Callum Marshall. Yes, I see he plays up front of his own, but they play a different type of football in the 21s. They really do now. They played some really good football yesterday, actually. But it's more possession based, it's more passing, it's breaking the lines. Nuno wants his striker. Chris Woods isn't going to be someone in a foot race, but he ended up being one of the top Premier League goal scorers last season. João Jimenez is saying at Wolves, that's what he wants. He wants his, actually, to be fair, Josh has got to turn and pace. Josh Landers has got to turn and pace him. So I think he's more suited, and the fact is he's now signed a new deal as well, and alongside Mamadou Kante and everyone else. So I think for me, he seems most suited because he's quite a big lad. He's quite a bulky lad. Definitely got a lot more bulk in him than the likes of Josh Ajala. I think Josh is more of a winger. Thierry Henry type, likes to float about. A good player, great goal. Technically very, very good. George Earthy played yesterday as well. I don't see a place for him in the squad, in the West Ham first team squad at the moment. I just don't. Injuries might change that, but at the moment I just don't think that's going to happen. But great shout, Pete. Would like to see Suchek up front. I've always thought he could do a job there. Always a threat. Katie, for more into you. Will Falk will be desperate to be in the German squad? He will be, which is why potentially he could leave in January. That's the sort of the rumours. I'm going to say rumours all the time because after yesterday's bullshit about the Remembrance thing and West Ham not doing properly, just proves what we say. They are rumours, and anyone can make up something and make it viral. With Falk, he's desperate to get in the German squad. He wasn't called up the last one because he was injured in training at West Ham, so he would have been called up. But you got to think with Nick Volkmaar as well, Newcastle, getting his performance getting better. He needs game time, and I generally think there is a place for him in this squad. I really do. I think if he stays fit, that's the trouble. If he was still fit, he'd have started every game under Nuno. I have no doubt about that because he didn't fancy Wilson. I mean, he literally only put Wilson in because Ollie got injured. He didn't fancy Wilson to start with, and I think he would fancy someone like Falkirk instead. A target man, old school forward, can bring players in, good in the air, can make a nuisance of himself for defenders, and that's what he likes in his striker. So it doesn't surprise me. I think the fact is because he's moved. I think there's a desire to go back to Germany because the German coach will have more eyes maybe in the Bundesliga than the Premier League. I get that, but I still think there's a role for him here. I really do. Ian from Australia, how long before Kante gets an opportunity? A while, I think. I think Kante, he's the club recognise clearly that he's one for the future. The fact is he's signed a new 5-year deal, or 6-year deal actually, to 2031. But for me, he's still very much a rough diamond. Yes, he's got a lot of good bits. I still think he's a bit naive sometimes. I think his passing's not to point. I think that type of thing you can get away from the 21s. But in the Premier League, you've got to be on it. And I think sometimes he's a little bit lackadaisical, but there's a lot of good points as well. And I think you just tighten him up. Maybe even next year, give him a loan, or even in January, maybe a loan 6 months or whatever, just to get some regular first team football in the English divisions. I think you'll see it'll pay dividends. Or maybe he carries on in the 21s and then next season goes out on loan or maybe integrated in the summer. I don't know. But he's obviously one they're keeping an eye on because he trained with the first team. 4 of them trained with the first team this week. Finn, Ezra, Edris and Kante. So the 4 of them all trained. So, they know he's a good player. I just think at the moment, where does he fit in? I think we've got Potts and Fernandez as the two. There's, if he's doing, and there's definitely going to be a role for him soon, but I don't know when. Landers played last night. He came on. I announced he's been coming on. He came for 20 minutes. Over 2,000 watching under 21's great game. Yeah, and there was a few more people at Rush Green to watch them as well, which was great. It was delayed by 20 minutes as well because Liverpool got stuck in traffic. But we now actually, what's interesting to 21's now is now there's the next home game, I think, at Rush Green isn't until January, I think, with the Premier League International Cup taking place. And that's at Dagenham Redbridge. That's on like a Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So that'll be really good. We've got some really good games. I think we play, I know we've got Borussia Dortmund, we've got Sporting Lisbon, we've got Atletico Bilbao, Anderlecht. So some really good games in our group. So yeah, it was great to see. Can you remember the beautiful feeling when we beat? Yes, I can indeed. I want that only to get back on a regular basis. I think the only way to get back on a regular is to change the hierarchy at our club. I think it's 1 point, one thing, one way. I think we'll win. I'm quite confident to stay as well. And Pete, again, under the hierarchy, you did get into Europe 3 years in a row as well. So I think there is obviously we've got the march today, and if you go into the march, obviously stay safe. And obviously, if you see anyone who's there just to have a little bit of trouble, get them out, because I think you're representing our fan base, and as long as it's peaceful, I think it's the right way. I think if it comes nasty, then we look in a bad light, and then all the good work that's been done has been lost. So a little bit nervous for that, but I am. Last time pre-COVID, there was a big march, and they were all very respectful and stuff like that. So and obviously then get into the ground and cheer on the boys, because I think that made a massive impact. And actually, as I said, Lima made a good point. It's like, we give them a little and they give us a lot, and that's what we want. We don't need a lot to get going. The fans will always turn up. They'll always sing bubbles, and then it's up to the players to then do stuff, and then us to feed off. Good to hear that 4 Nows he has indeed. Keep an eye on the channel. You may well have a little chat with him sometime soon. Stefan's confidence, but we shouldn't underestimate Burnley at all. They've got a couple of wins under their belt. They're unlucky to a couple of games. Dan in the chat, we had Dan on Turf Moorhouse on Thursday. Go and check out that preview chat with him. He did quite well in the player picture game as well. But he was saying that there's been they're unlucky with a couple of results. Swing each way, could have got a point here and a point there. They could have beaten Man United. They were close to that as well. And they're no mugs. They're no mugs. So and they know they're not stupid. If they come out all guns blazing and maybe get a quick goal, that the fans will turn pretty sharpish. There's still a tinderbox in there in terms of fan base. Yes, there's a bit more positive nature. There's a lot of people very nervous about the Burnley game, because I think Newcastle, not necessarily a free hit, but Newcastle, you would have assumed they would have maybe beaten us. This is a proverbial 6-pointer. This is actually, a 6-pointer. This could be a massive game for us. If this is possibly I think it is our most important game of the season. A win today, a strong win today, would get us out of that bottom 3. And I think, as from a psychological perspective, that's huge. That is huge. And then getting that gap close, we've got that gap closer from the teams above us, and then we go into after the international break. It's all the way till March, and I think the likes of Sunderland, Leeds, Burnley to some extent, they won't have sort of a 2-week gap in every 4 weeks. So the squads and the strength of a squad will be tested, and I think then you'll see the league starting to sort itself out a little bit at the moment. I don't expect Sunderland to finish in the Champions League spots this season. Agreed, Kante, it's there, but he needs to sharpen up. Is the same, except more skills. And to be fair, let's be honest. Preston yesterday was very good, but he let the ball very simply in a few times. There's one in the first half. Yeah, the first half where he ended up sort of covering for centre back, and he literally almost just passed it to the Liverpool striker. And if it wasn't for Ezra getting back in time, we would have lost. It would have conceded. And so that, you know, there's still some kinks that need to be worked out with these guys, but it's like they've got the right ingredients, but they just need to be baked at the right temperature. Do you know what I mean? If you bake it too quickly, they're going to burn. If you bake it just right, and sometimes you bake things a little bit slower, that usually makes you get a better, you know, you get a better stew. I don't know where that comes from, but it actually makes sense. What do you think of the photo I don't Nino had? Loved it, and I love that type of stuff because it's, you know, I think it's really, and actually I think it was really, in a way, part of me is really happy that you put that poster out on Instagram, because I think us as fans like to see that type of stuff. And it's great for team building, but it's great for us to see what Nuno's trying to do in terms of bringing the fans bringing the players together, because, you know, it's a bit of fun. It's, you know, I think football is so fucking serious now. It's so like, and that's the issue of money. You know, money's got into the game now so much that the fun element of football, I think, is taken out. You know, and and I see it every home. I'm going to walk and talk. I see it every home game. You know, when I watch I sit there and I talk to the club ambassadors. You know, I talk to like Brian Deere and John Moncur and people like that, and they tell me stories about, you know, every game is a different story they tell me about, and I'm thinking, Aaron Wan-Bissaka won't do that. And it's not no disrespect to Aaron, but it's just the way nature of football is now. You know, he's a proper boy. So stuff like that makes him seem personable. I think too often footballers are now seen on like a pedestal. You know, you'll see a player who's like a current player, but oh my god, he's really good. Whereas, you know, I remember when I used to live in Loughton, you know, in the too late in the 90s, well, all my life until about 30. But you know, you'd see, I always. My greatest ever player spot was Paul Kitson in Woolworths buying a massive tub of pick mix. And you wouldn't get that now. You wouldn't get Mavropanos going into Oh My God and buying a kebab. You know what I mean? Morning, Kieran. Good day to you, son. Morning, Fogging and well. Everyone's talking to each other. Toby's in the chat. Nice to see. Not felt this optimistic for a game. Good luck. Yeah. Canningtown learning Rusty Crust. Do you know what? Funny enough, Flo said to me the other day, "You need to bring back in Rusty Crust. You need to bring it back." So maybe in the close season, maybe in the close season, we might do a barbecue in Rusty Crust in terms of a nice crust and a steak. Yes, God bless him. Hope you're well, mate. Hope you're well, Len. Good to see you. Geezer. Rusty Lust. Yeah, that'll be Halloween. That's the Halloween, Valentine's sorted. You can have you had Sue fell at a bus stop and we loved it. We did indeed. And so yeah, you do get some type of things. Yeah. Good old lad. Good old lad. Keep an eye on the channel. Matt's missus is called Donna. It's funny. I saw it was a few games ago. It was on the few games ago. We had the as I walked down from the, like where I do the butter monkey and stuff, as Len would call it. Actually, Len, I saw Nigel Khan. Nigel was at the game yesterday. Nice, and he's German friend, so we had a good old chat with him. But anyway, I saw a kid. I took a picture of him because it's got to be Mav's brother. He looks an absolute spitty, and that's where they put some of the players. That's where they give the tickets to like the players' families and stuff. And it was literally a spitting image of Mav. I thought it was Mav to start with, but he was playing, and so could be him. But yeah, good old Mav. God bless him. As I reckon, he'll be back probably after the international break. And I imagine Nicholas will be, or he may well shock us, and he may well start today. I don't think he will, though. I don't think we'll see Nicholas talking today. He sort of alluded to that in the press conference that he didn't expect him to be here, or he'd be here, but in the starting lineup in the squad. But my boy, 𝗪𝗪𝗦𝗧 should be. Tell ya, I spotted him 18 months ago. And hopefully he'll be on the bench today rather than and that'd be absolutely amazing. You know, he's just turned 18. Turned 18 like last week. Turned 18 last week. Signed a new 5+1 deal. Under 21 captain at the age of 17/18. Last person to do that was Declan Rice. and for him to be on the bench today, if he is, will be awesome. Yes, it might be only just to cover Mav's injury, but still, you've got to be in it to win it, and you never know. A couple of injuries, and he might get some minutes, which will be awesome, which will make him something like I think Nigel worked out, I think it's the 1,000 and, the next player is the 1,000 and, third or something like that, player to have ever played for West Ham, so, first team, so, yes, because I think Fernandes was the 1,000th player, based on the actual start date of West Ham, not the unofficial start date of West Ham. Very bizarre. Very bizarre. So what we're thinking, let's get some predictions in the chat. What are we thinking, peeps? What are we thinking in terms of the game itself? Do you know what? I'm buoyed by the game yesterday. Could be amazing for this team. Mate, he is. The only thing about him is he, I sort of compared him a bit to a young Rio Ferdinand, in that he's a very classy defender, never seems to panic, always seems to have time on the ball, reads the game really well, can play a bit, can drop a shoulder and take it in as well, and I love that. He's not a lump though. He's not a lump. 2-0, 2-0, 2-1. Mark's gone with 2-1. Mark on Twitter has gone for X, has gone for 2-0. I think, do we just need 2-0 to get out of the bottom? I can't remember. I look at the goal, because obviously the goal, people go, it's the goal difference, but actually our goal difference will counteract the goal difference from Burnley if we're going above them. Let's have it indeed. What have we got here? 1-0. 4-0 says Toby. Oh, yeah, I think win by 2. Yeah. Kilman scoring skill. Oh, could Max Kilman get a goal? Could he get a goal? Depends who's on corners. Freddie Potts was on corners last game, wasn't he? Yeah. I think it's going to be, I just think, and actually, Dan from Turf Moor House made a really interesting point. Is the international break happening at the wrong time for West Ham in terms of momentum? And it probably is, but it always does tend to, because then after the international break we go away to Bournemouth. Never an easy place to go to. Bournemouth are flying as well. So Peter K is going for a 3-1 Bowen, Paqueta and Potts. Yes. Obviously Freddie, that would have just put the icing on the cake if he'd scored on Sunday, wouldn't it? But yeah. I think if he got a clean sheet, it'd be great. I think we really need one. 2-2. Can't see back-to-backs. We don't do that. Want to be wrong? Well, anything can happen. Anything can happen, Mark. West Ham. That Newcastle performance came out of nowhere, didn't it? Really, in all honesty, we're being brutally honest. We thought we might get a draw. Sure, starting lineup. A little bit of hope. It's the hope that kills you, isn't it? And then, same as last year. Do you remember St James's Park? Literally, that was the complete game for West Ham last year. We were brilliant. It was under Lopetegui, wasn't it? And Paqueta was back to his best, and the sun is shining. The sun is shining. What more could happen? I just what would be good? And I think what's quite interesting. Someone made a point on one of Anton's videos that what would happen if Newcastle hadn't scored first? Would we have come out of the traps like we did? And hindsight's a great thing. We never really genuinely know. But interesting. It'd be an interesting point, because obviously typically Nuno tends to be more pragmatic. And indeed, when we did Ben, our analyst, Statman Ben, he put together some stuff, sort of looking at Potter's first 5 games and Nuno's first 5 games, and we'd scored the same amount of goals. We'd been successful in more aerial duels. We'd passed less, but we'd had better XG, which shows that we were being more direct than we were under Nuno, so under Potter rather. So actually, fun enough, yesterday there was a guy, I should have taken a picture, who looked in the crowd yesterday for the other 21s, who looked just like Graham Potter, but he'd obviously had a hair transplant. He looked just like him. It was so uncanny. Some of the West Ham media team were like nudging me, going, "Is that Potter over there?" And I was like, "It wasn't," but it looked like his absolute alter ego brother. Bill's gone for a 3-0. Goal from our box. Sorry, they're doing the barriers. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go for a 2-0. I'll go for a 2-0. I'd love it if it's a more, but I'll go for a 2-0. Burnley, we're undefeated in the last 6 with them. We've got a decent record. Funny enough, after all the games we played Burnley, in over 100 games, the goal difference is +1. We're like 159 got scored and 158 we've conceded. It's absolutely mental. But anyway, keep it on the channel. Anton will be doing a watch along. Hopefully we'll get a live link up in the London Stadium, and then I'll probably run round afterwards with him after the game. Hopefully after another fantastic West Ham victory, back-to-back home wins. Must be a couple of seasons since we last did that, my friends. But anyway, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble. Don't forget to check out Match Bingo. Download the QR code, really helps that channel. And any deposit you put in, if you put in the code WHN, you get 200% back. Absolute bargain. Take care, much love. See you soon.